Hello and welcome to the Connecting Communities podcast. My name is Caitlin and I'm the Communications Coordinator for MassHire Metro North Workforce Board. Our organization is dedicated to developing partnerships, generating resources, and advocating for workforce solutions that result in a skilled workforce, prospering businesses, and access to meaningful career pathways for local residents. On this show, we share workforce development stories by speaking with members of our communities who believe in the power of quality employment. Sitting down with us today is Jessica Eshleman, Executive Director of the Union Square Main Streets. Union Square Main Streets is an organization working to strengthen the dynamic neighborhood of businesses and people in Union Square. Welcome and thank you for being here, Jessica.
Thanks for having me, Caitlin. It's always a joy to talk about the work we're doing here in Union Square, Somerville.
Absolutely. So I'd love to kick off the episode by having you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your work and your organization.
Thank you. As you've shared, my name is Jessica Eshleman, and I've been serving as the ED for Union Square Main Streets since 2018. So in the course of that time, our nonprofit has really seen our neighborhood and commercial district through quite a number of challenges. Of course, everybody will think of the pandemic and some more of the recent challenges. But if any of your listeners know Somerville well, I was taking the helm of our organization at the time of a major roadwork project called Somerville Ave Streetscape Utility Project, which dug up our commercial district for 3 years. The work of our organization is to serve the neighborhood of Union Square in the city of Somerville, which many know is right outside of Boston. But if anybody's listening from further afield, Union Square is about 2 miles from downtown Boston, just across the river from Charles River. And we are a bustling, awesome, happening commercial district that has more than 200 independently owned businesses. And our nonprofit works in many, many ways to uplift those locally owned businesses and work to keep our square a place for all.
So awesome. It's such a great mission. And kind of leads me to my next question. Anyone who's been to Union Square can see it's such a unique neighborhood with several vibrant small businesses, artists, and people. So how do you promote and celebrate all that makes Union Square so special?
I have to say, Caitlin, this is among the more joyful side of the work that we do. It's a joy and an honor to tell the story of our neighborhood. And we do that in a bunch of different ways. Storytelling is like gardening. You're never done. You're constantly doing it. There's different seasons and different opportunities to cultivate or spotlight, I would say, different parts of our district. One of the ways that we are really celebrating the businesses that make Union Square so unique is through our communication channels. So we put a lot of emphasis on things like our social media channels. We have tens of thousands of people connected with us across 3 different channels on both Instagram and Facebook. So we have channels dedicated to our organization, Union Square Main Streets. We have channels dedicated to the farmers market that we produce called Union Square Farmers Market. And then lastly, we have channels dedicated to the What the Fluff Festival, which is a large street festival that happens each September in our square that I'll talk more about soon. But we also have a very robust newsletter publication that we send out to 5,000 hyper-local subscribers. And I have to say, this is where those that live and work in Union Square really get connected with a lot of information in one consolidated place. So the newsletter is called All Things Union, and we aggregate all the mainstream media coverage of our businesses. We do business features where we actually sit down, similar to what you and I are doing today, but we put it in print and interview one of the leaders in our communities that make their businesses great and how they stay connected to the square. Those then live on our website as well. And then I would say that we promote and celebrate the square a lot through our events as well. So each Saturday that there's a farmers market, it's a celebration of the square. The Fluff Festival I mentioned is similar. It's a very important strategic tool that we use to tell the story of our neighborhood. And then, of course, each December there's a holiday event called the Winter Holiday Stroll, where we also seek to tell the story of our neighborhood through the types of programming that we select for the events. So maybe the performers or the artists that we work with, we strive to really make them reflect the wonderful diversity that makes up Union Square year round.
That's great. Yeah, so many great resources and ways to learn more about all the great things you guys are doing. Going a little deeper, how does USMS advocate for and assist local businesses?
So this happens, our support of the local businesses happens on the one-on-one level, the way that we're providing technical assistance, mentoring, and support to an individual business or an individual owner of a business, or it works at the collective level when we're heading to City Hall to advocate for something on behalf of the businesses within the district that we serve. In order for us to achieve the first strategy that I mentioned, the technical assistance, Union Square Main Streets created a dedicated bilingual small business liaison position in our organization a couple of years back. Our small business liaison has been in his role for 4 years now, and over that time has really operated from a position of relationship building as the foundation for everything that we do. And I really want to underscore that for you and for your listeners, because it is, in my opinion, our competitive advantage and what makes our support and our technical assistance so impactful is that feet to the street, 40 hours a week, Michael is out there establishing and cultivating relationships. And sometimes it has taken weeks, months, or even years for us to connect with a business in a meaningful way. And I really want to underscore this because that is the work, is establishing, cultivating the relationships with those that you are serving, particularly in the work that we do where we're serving brick and mortar businesses, many of them in the service industries, and many of them either owned by or employing diverse individuals from all across the globe at a time like now where ICE enforcement is more active than ever, and at a time when scams, for example, are more active than ever. Building that trust is something that our organization, that's square one for us. We start there and then we move from there, and then technical assistance flows. So we might be helping somebody negotiate a lease with their landlord. We might help them access capital to expand their storefront or buy a new piece of equipment, enhance their business plan. Determine if something is fraudulent or a scam. That's actually probably the highest volume calls that our small business liaison get. He is fluent in Spanish and English, and also has the capacity of being able to speak some Portuguese. So business leaders who speak English languages other than English as their first often will call him to say, please review this letter or this email that I got so that we can evaluate together if I should provide my sensitive information. So support takes a wide variety of forms and shapes. It really depends on what that business needs and how ready they are for us to serve them. And then, and the advocacy, we are talking about bus routes and bus stops and parking spots and coordinating with the city's construction liaison to try and make things like gas line installation as low impact as possible for businesses that rely on those parking spaces and the street to be up and running.
Yeah, that's great. And earlier you mentioned like the importance of trust, and I think that just is so important today. And I'm really glad you mentioned that, and just the value of forming a trusting relationship, I think, can go so far in today's climate.
Thank you. I appreciate you highlighting that also, because I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So how is USMS working to create welcoming public spaces, and why do you believe this is important?
Public spaces is it's really a billboard. It's the first messaging that people who find themselves in a place encounter, and often it is less obvious. It could be anything from a wayfinding sign that helps you figure out how to get to the subway stop, to a farmer's market that you have to maneuver around, or to how a parklet is set up for outdoor dining. But all of the details that are related to those kinds of activities are sending 24-hour a day, 365 days a year messages and signals as to who is welcome here, how they are welcome, and how they are being served. Union Square Main Streets believes wholeheartedly in our heart and our soul, in our mission, that our work is to serve anybody whose foot lands on the sidewalk or a wheelchair wheel lands on the sidewalk of our district. So the emphasis on the public realm and making sure it's welcoming for all has been very important to our organizations for all 21 years of its service to the city of Somerville. And again, the most concrete ways that we're hands-on with that are the parklets being set up for the outdoor dining, ensuring that they are meeting or exceeding ADA compliance. With the farmers market that we produce, we made a decision in 2020 that we actually were going to reduce the number of vendor spots that we had in order to uphold a higher level of creating a sense of welcoming space for the less able-bodied community. And the concrete example, that's ironic I use that word, is if anybody is familiar with the Union Square Plaza, there are raised cobblestones out in front of the old firehouse. And for 15 or more years, we had placed vendors elevated on the cobblestone with a ramp. And while this is technically ADA compliant, we really gave an honest, hard look on it and realized it was not inviting, and it did not send the signal of you are welcome here without a lot of complication. And so we reduced our revenues, the fees for service, and reduced the number of farmers market booths in order to uphold that value. The last example I'll say is we were able, with huge thanks and appreciation to the city of Somerville for a generous ARPA grant, able to install wayfinding signage throughout our square. And that it was very important to us that those signs communicated information in English and Spanish and in Portuguese at minimum, as those are the three languages that are spoken most often in our commercial district.
That's great. It's clear how much you guys really think about everything, and maybe little things that people might not necessarily even think of, and that other neighborhoods and other areas aren't necessarily working towards. So I really admire that.
Yeah.
How does Union Square Main Streets collaborate with local partners and stakeholders to improve or better connect workforce development initiatives in Union Square and Somerville?
We work in this area in a lot of directions also, but I will sort of carry on a theme from what we were just talking about, which was Union Square Main Streets making difficult decisions about revenue versus creating a welcoming public realm. We strive to lead by example. So one of the ways we hope that our partners, particularly in the workforce development space, can collaborate with us, or we can inspire them, is by something like the important value of a high road employer status, which it sounds like you're familiar with. The Sustainable Network of Businesses, I hope I have that name right, at the federal level came up with this concept of creating high equity jobs. And so the pay is going to be equitable and the benefits will be robust. That is something the Union Square Main Streets Board of Directors has prioritized for its own team. And that has been instrumental to our small nonprofit being able to make such deep impact, because we have long team member participation with us. Our staff members tend to stay with us longer. So that's one way, is sort of leading by example. We also get nitty gritty and roll up our sleeves with our partners. So Caitlin, I'm not sure if you were on the MassHire team a few years ago when we were very involved with MassHire, East Somerville Main Streets, the Welcome Project, and a few others from the city of Somerville who were working to advance opportunities for employees to develop new skills, language access. This included access to technology like laptops. And in that case, we used our ability to get the word out, feet to street, to really make sure that the businesses that we serve and all the employees that are within those businesses we're aware of the opportunities that MassHire was organizing. So sometimes it's on the grounds and door to door to door to make sure that our partners' information is being connected to everybody else. And then the last thing that I'll really highlight for this section is um, circling back to the communication channels that we talked about. You know, the
Hmm.
tens of thousands who follow us on social, the 5,000 that are on our mailing list. We amplify the call of so many of our city partners. Um, you know, just in the last week, the neighborhood council had reached out to us to please promote heavily the community benefits agreement vote that happened in our square, which will brought the city's first ever project labor agreement to be part of a community benefits agreement. The Chamber of Commerce has reached out to us to ask us to please amplify their promotion of the Taste of Somerville, which is an important activity that they host each year. So often our partnership and collaborations will be in the form of amplifying the call of the very good work that our mission aligned partners are doing every single day.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like especially in the nonprofit sector, you really have to draw on organizations around you that are working towards similar missions that complement each other and support each other. So it's really cool that you guys have so many great relationships around the community.
Thanks. I'd love to sneak one more thing in here before we go to the next question. I
Yeah.
agree. The nonprofit sector, the collaborations and partnerships are amazing and what gets us to be a greater impact. But one of the things we continuously encourage our for-profit businesses that we serve, the independently owned um, international markets, for example, or the 3 Peruvian restaurants that are here, any
Hmm.
of the small businesses, is that thinking shouldn't just be stuck in the nonprofit sector. In
Yeah.
fact, the for-profit businesses that collaborate in our square tend to benefit from leveraging one another's mailing list distribution and customer reach. So I'm thinking
Hmm.
about Tammy and Maka pairing up with Aaron from Gracie's ice cream, and suddenly the macaroon cookies were in the ice cream, and you better believe everybody that loved Tammy's maca Boston so much needed to go get that ice cream. So I just want to
Yeah.
encourage anybody listening that while this is important for our nonprofit sector, and I would even go so far as municipal sector, that I hope you know, as humans and as businesses and as entrepreneurs, we just think about that broadly.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you added that in. That's so true and it's important to consider. Um, Going to the next question, it's no secret that we're experiencing a rapidly changing job landscape today, both locally and across the country. So how do you see Union Square changing and adapting to shifts in technology, rising new industries, and things like that, while also preserving what makes this neighborhood so unique and special?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the end part of your question. How do we preserve this neighborhood as so much development is happening around us? And this is, uh, I think a lot about our mission. And while I've served other communities in a similar role as the director of a Main Street organization in other cities, other states, in those communities, I would have referred to my work as economic development work.
Hmm.
Here in Union Square, I realized that it's different because the lab buildings are being built. You know, the housing market is crazy. Economic development is happening here, but it's a specialized type that we want to uphold and fortify and strengthen. And so we often talk about our work as economic empowerment within a place keeping frame. So, how do we bolster a business that's been here for 20 years when rents were really low? Their storefront rents were really low because every subway stop was 1 mile from them, which is
Yeah.
what led to us being such a beautifully diverse district. But now that the Green Line has opened here, now we have some businesses whose rent has seriously, I'm telling facts, has increased 100%. So how can we support that business that has decades of services here? So that's the economic empowerment piece that we talk about. And then this
Hmm.
idea of place keeping, saying yes to the train that came through the subway station, saying yes to the lab buildings that are going to bring 500 daytime employees who will shop at these businesses, get their dry cleaning cleaned here, pick up their Mother's Day gifts. Um, and yes to creating the commercial tax base that it takes to fund projects like the one MassHire and Union Square Main Streets did recently, or the Office of Housing Stability. So it's a yes and proposition that we're always looking for. So our work to accomplish that happens again in a few different ways. I talked about the technical assistance that we are providing on a day in and day out basis. What I would say to you on that, what we've been doing more lease negotiation support than our organization ever has. So we are meeting our business where they're at with the needs that they have as they evolve over time. Number two, what is changing with our emphasis there relates to the national landscape right now. We have been doing more know your rights work, getting information about red cards into the hands of business owners and employees. If folks aren't familiar with those, they are a tool that has been devised for anybody who might interact with ICE to provide information that might be legally required from them. And we all consider that to be integral to the work, the placekeeping work that we do here, since we have such a rich history of so many diverse cultures making our square amazing. And USMS has never been in the practice ever of asking of anybody's citizen status. But we are bringing in different resources to help anybody who may need them. If you were to go to the other side of industry in our square, as your question alluded to, there's bio labs here, there's tough tech here, there's a lot of green tech here. The largest green tech incubator in North America, Greentown Labs, is in our district. Often the city is creating a lot of workforce development programs rather, or putting RFPs out for contracts for people to help job readiness for folks who live in Somerville and around to take positions within those lab buildings. Union Square Main Street's focus is how do we connect meaningful relationship to the employees and the entrepreneurs in those buildings with the individuals who own and run our independently owned businesses, so that there's a little bit of, there's an infinity loop happening there. So again, it takes many, many forms. And one thing that our small nonprofit has thought deep and hard about is how can we both be most effective uplifting our partners as opposed to trying to duplicate any efforts that are being done well already out there. So, well, we imagine if we had a staff of 20, we could take on so many other projects. We are actually really proud right now to look around to say, partners over in East Somerville, what are you doing that we either may be able to join in on or uplift, or MassHire, the Chamber of Commerce. We work in many directions to say, how can we work together to keep our square, our city, this really unique spot when it goes undergoes so much transformation in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep it the way that it began almost, and preserve that kind of unique essence while we're around all these different changes happening. So that kind of leads into my next question. What's next for your organization, and are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're particularly excited about?
Well, there's the what's up next for us immediately and long term. One of the things that we are grappling with, that many nonprofits and others in for-profit industries are the sustainability of some of our funding sources. And we've been taking a look at this for a number of years. A portion of our budget does come from HUD, Community Development Block Grant funding. And the current presidential administration has certainly made indications that there will be reductions in those pipelines, and that has been a core funding mechanism for a lot of our work since 2005. So that's the longer, how are we going to become more self-sufficient as an organization, less dependent on federal government, so that we can continue and deepen our services here. So that's something that's very critical. In the near term, we are gearing up for the 8th annual Good Food for All campaign. This takes place the last week of June, which I understand will be right after, or right before, rather, this airs. But for an 8th year in a row, we have businesses coming together with neighbors, coming together with corporate sponsors who all contribute, donate money to make the SNAP match possible at the farmers market that we operate. I'm very proud to say that we have provided a match every single Saturday our market has been open since the year 2005. And for the first many years of those, about 13 or 14, it was private fundraising with board members, friends who could write checks. And then the need outgrew that way of fundraising. And we realized we weren't telling the story of our neighborhood as a place that so many here want to help keep that placekeeping element while we embrace the development around us. So Good Food for All for the full last week of June. Sometimes some breweries are donating $1 for every certain beer that is sold. I know one farmers market vendor, Hutchins Farm, is saying buy lettuce and we'll donate $1 for every lettuce. We have structured this to be hopefully a tool that businesses can use to promote things within their businesses. Some choose to just say, here's a check. We think it's great and we acknowledge them for that. Others say, I'm going to donate 8% of my proceeds from the week that you're talking about. And then neighbors who believe in this cause send in contributions as well. And we're really grateful for our corporate sponsors, everybody from Liberty Cannabis to Rockland Trust. It's a wide variety of groups that have gotten involved to keep the Snap Match going, which we find has been increasingly important as the development continues. And then the last thing I definitely want to mention, because everybody loves it so much and it's really so unique and you can't find it anywhere else, literally. This year is the 20th annual What the Fluff Festival. If anybody listening is like, what the fluff? That's right, WTF. So here's the story. Marshmallow fluff, many are familiar, but I can't guarantee that everybody listening is. It's a creamy white sugary marshmallow spread. And in 1917, Archibald Query, an immigrant from Canada, invented marshmallow fluff right here in Somerville. So since 2006, our nonprofit has been leveraging that as an opportunity to invite now 20,000 of our closest friends, up to 100 vendors, multiple stages for 4 hours of sticky, sweet, unbelievable fun, where businesses that within their brick and mortars will offer things like fluff empanadas or fluff beer or fluff pizza, fluff churros, you name it. I saw fluff sushi last year. I didn't get to try that one. Vendors on the street selling different fluff art, fluff jewelry, you name it. It has fluff on it. People want it. And we use it as a tool in our toolbox for economic empowerment, to empower the businesses that make Somerville so awesome to shine and tell that story of our neighborhood to people who flock here for this, that we are left of center and we're wacky and we're whimsy. And yes, we're going to play musical chairs with marshmallow fluff. So yes, that means somebody's walking away with a butt full of covered by marshmallow fluff. Yes, we're doing fluff limbo, where you have to limbo underneath a limbo bar that's been slathered in fluff. Yes, we're doing fluff hairdos. You heard that right. People actually put marshmallow fluff and peanut butter in their hair. We do this at the very end and then get judged for creativity by the audience. And again, 20th year that this has been going on, and usually about 20,000 people who come out. So there's a lot of 20s in this part, because this year the festival is on September 20th, also in the afternoon. So if anybody listening wants to hear a little bit more about that or learn more about that, you can go to flufffestival.com. Our organization does present and produce it, but it is such a large experience now. It has its own dedicated website.
Yeah, that is so much fun. I've lived in the area for a couple years now, and I've been to What the Fluff Festival for the past 2 years, and I can attest it's a really fun time.
So you came out in the rain, because the last
I
2
did.
years were really
I did.
tough.
I felt like a local. I felt, I could feel the community. I was like, it's raining, but this is so much fun, and people were just so positive, and it was infectious.
That's it. The amount of joy that this festival brings to people, and amount of hometown pride, as you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Whether somebody has moved away from Somerville, we hear all the time, I come back for Fluff Festival because I feel connected. But Mother Nature really was not kind to Fluff Festival in terms of the weather the last 2 years. And the show went on, and I have to say, we have dozens and dozens of vendors who pay to participate, and many were concerned that they might not have high sales days. But I'll tell you, as everybody was cleaning up and I was walking down Somerville Ave, I could hear each one saying, I did a lot better today than I thought I would. So it's a the importance of it as an economic driver cannot be understated alongside the joy.
Yeah. Um, I have a couple questions left. So, kind of starting to wrap it up, for people who are looking to get involved in supporting Union Square Main Streets, what's the best way for them to connect or contribute?
Thanks. We love having folks involved in a lot of different ways. So unionsquaremain.org is our website. From there, folks could sign up for those newsletters, could find us on social. From there, folks, if they wanted to volunteer for the farmers market, could inquire and learn more about the opportunity to get involved by literally contributing a couple of hours. We are always gratefully accepting contributions, tax deductible donations to our SNAP match. So the Good Food campaign, which again, when this airs, should have just wrapped up, but we accept contributions gratefully, gratefully, gratefully. Throughout the whole year, folks can choose to also donate to support our mission generally as well. We have a $25 community supporter level where, again, tax deductible, people can say, I want to help contribute to the work that Union Square Main Streets is doing to help keep this rapidly developing neighborhood a place for all. So we invite people to do any or all of those things. Certainly, if they're at the farmers market, come up to the market manager's tent. It has our Union Square Main Streets logo on all four sides. If we're at Fluff Fest, find the info booth and you can chat with any of the 100 volunteers who help make the Fluff Festival happen, and they can direct you to more of the board and staff members who are out and about on that day as well.
Great. And lastly, kind of a fun question, but if you could describe Union Square in one word, what would it be?
Caitlin, I can't wait to see your reaction to this. I have a word and I'm going to tell it to you in a minute, but what is your word for it?
Ooh, hmm. This is a hard question. I will say. I think it's hard to sum it up in one word. Something that came to mind for me was creative.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm in a band, kind of as a hobby for fun, and our first gig was actually at Bow Market in Union Square. Um, and because my roommate was doing a fundraiser for the Rosendale Food Pantry, and she connected with Bow Market and was like, "Hey, can I hold a fundraiser here?" And they just like welcomed her with open arms. And she's like, "Can I also bring a 7-piece band?" And they were like, "Yes, like we love promoting music and all of that." So yeah, I think creative is my word.
I love that. And I would agree with that. And yes, there are so many arts embedded everywhere, and generosity. Yes, come raise money for a food security program in another city. It doesn't matter. We all love our neighbors across the city lines here in Somerville. And there's just a lot of creative outputs in a lot of different ways. So thank you for playing along. That might not have felt fair, but I appreciate that you played along.
Of
My
course.
word for this, I did think on it for a minute because many come to mind, but my one word, if it has to be one, is happening. Because Union Square is a happening neighborhood. Literally, there's something always happening here. And if listeners want to know about events like the one you described, more or others like concerts and shows, comedy shows, we have an event listing on our webpage, again, unionsquaremain.org. But happening because if you happen to come here, you will find there's this sense of discovery here when you happen to go down an alley and then find Back Bar, which is considered to be one of the top 10 bars in the country. You go around into an old envelope factory and boom, you find Aeronaut Brewery. There's such like you just happen upon things sometime. But happening also felt like a good word to conclude our chat today, to celebrate a fairly recent accolade that our square received. So last fall, out of nowhere, I think it was my dad who called me first and said, "Jess, did you see Union Square, Somerville was named the 38th coolest neighborhood in the world by Time Out travel publication?" And I didn't know because I didn't pitch this story to any media sources, but it
Yeah.
is a happening place. And of the 38 cities that they chose to highlight or neighborhoods, I think four of them were in the US. But it was such a reward to see a global audience recognize the really unique offerings here that make this a happening space for people to come and enjoy themselves, enjoy community, enjoy independently owned businesses as those become increasingly rare in America. So that's my answer. Happening.
Wow, that's perfect. I didn't know about that accolade either. That's amazing. So cool. And I definitely agree. It's happening. There's always something going on. I love going to Union.
Fabulous. Well, we hope we can welcome you to the square back soon. As you heard me mentioned, we do have 4 Mexican restaurants, 3 Peruvian restaurants, a German restaurants, a couple of Japanese restaurants, a Chinese restaurant. There's no shortage. We have Himalayan food or Nepali Indian, all the kinds of flavors of the globe that you might like, and some of the most unique um, retail businesses here as well, many of which are in Bow Market, like you mentioned. So we hope to welcome you and a lot of your listeners to the square soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Caitlin.